Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. He's Commander Cocking.
He's Captain Foley.
And do you remember a long, long time ago, in a YouTube land far, far away, we did a video about a ship? One of your favorite ships, actually.
And we do that sometimes. And if you'd like to see what other ships we've done in this 10-year anniversary special celebration video, you can just scroll through our YouTube channel and find ships, and more ships, or just Google any ship, and it's likely I've done something on it, Stuart. Yes, we are continuing our anniversary 10-year journey with some hand-picked ships. Last time, or previous time, we did the Foley with some beautiful renders of your magnificent ship, and you guys loved it. Huzzah. Now we're looking at a Star Wars ship, because, as you said, it's been 7 years since I highlighted this bad boy. It feels more recent, but 7 years. So it's fair that we take another look. I've converted the model. I've done some few things, but there are some new things to be gained. But if you want to click on the first picture, Stuart. So what I've done here, Stuart, is last time, Barry Chapman, who we love, built us a custom Ebon Hawk based on the real one, and we used that. So it was a replica of replica, but we used that, and then reference shots on the game. This is the game model that I have manually enhanced and rendered in Octane Render, which is a more interacting light, a more correct lighting system, so it looks more real. Done some custom things, the textures to make them kind of pop a bit. So this is the real Ebon Hawk. This is screen accurate, but lit better. So whereas the Barriers, we were looking at the overall design, because it had more polygons, you could appreciate it more. This is now less polygons, but everything is exactly as it was, so we can look at it more faithfully. And we've got some comparisons of scale and such later on, and just a few things, and see how we approach this differently. So Stuart, 10 years, of 7 years, 10 years, all the things. What do you think about Ebon Hawk? Now you're staring at the game model. How do you feel now?
It's still pretty great.
From Star Wars, the Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, and because those are RPG style games where you, like Skyrim, right, where you have a home base and such, this is your home base, so you spend a lot of the game inside and flying it, all different rooms and having character quests. So I've spent easily 200 hours, 300 hours over the two games inside the ship, so I know that's why it's home, right, for those that play the game. So it's the Old Republic, so it's thousands of years ago ship, but in Star Wars, tech never changes, so...
Yeah, and it is Corellian in its design. You can get some design elements there that remind you of the Falcon. Although it's different enough, and I really appreciate that. I'm glad it's not just cut and paste kind of shapes from the Falcon. But you definitely get a feel that it's in the same fleet. As for size, I'm not sure from this picture. I'm sure we will get into that though. But yeah, it's a pretty cool looking little ship. I did say little because I think it's not that big compared to the Falcon, but...
And this is 4,000 years before Battle of Yavin, if that helps.
4,000 years.
Not much has changed.
Yeah. Damn.
And of course, it's a game model, so we're going to forgive its harder edges. But, I mean, they say try and text string. This thing is loaded to the brim with lots of implied under-detailing. So yeah, this is obviously a fun one for me because it was your home base. It's trying to be the Falcon, and they knew in the game this is trying to be their Falcon, and it's blockier, of course, but I think its style is so effective. The fact that it's got that odd head unit, and then they're not pontoons, but they're kind of like front pontoon bits, give it some depth and width, and it turns the engines, the guns. It's kind of a graceful, bulky, whereas the Falcon's kind of sleeker. And not thinner, but it feels less substantial. This feels bigger and more platey. Now, of course, I'd love to see a full, proper, like from someone at the Lucas group, make a version for film, see how they would reinterpret it, right? Because fans have made high-res versions, still limited on the original concept. Like, for example, how deep do these, if you look at the left-hand sort of not pontoon, there's an implied plate with piping underneath, right? Like how deep that goes in is up to the artist at the time. You can make it really 3D, or you can make it very kind of simple, right? So it'd be an interesting one to kind of up detail. What stands out though?
They haven't added this as a Easter egg in any movies or anything? Because I know they've done some ships.
More games. It's in some of the mobile games as like a tertiary thing, and they're more sort of simple, clean versions, which in fairness look quite nice. But obviously we want a high detail version. No, it's a very long time ago, so it's hard to... I would love to have seen it, but this would be quite a big thing to build. But yeah, what stands out in this sort of view, apart from the, I think, lovely colour orange, But again, I'm
Yeah,
biased.
I was going to say the color scheme, and just the uniformity of it as well. The Falcon is very like platey detail. Like you got rust plates, and you got the asymmetrical look of it. This is very symmetrical. It's got a very nice, look, and it feels cohesive, which I think is great. I do kind of like the blunt front end on it because it's space, man. And I'm sure the ship obviously lands and goes into atmosphere and stuff like that, but you don't need something that's sleek. And I kind of like this vibe. Yeah, it just feels like an interesting design choice, right?
Well, exactly. It's a choice, right? Something's been done there. It kind of has a slight Hammerhead vibe, which they have in the game as well. So there's a slight, but of course, very few polygons, right? It's a harder shape. Now, we'll talk about scale again, as we did 7 years ago in this, but you can see the window glass of the cockpit, which are giant, and we have built bits and bobs for this. And for example, if you build it at one scale, so it's got like a cross pattern. If you have a cross pattern, one of the beams is directly in the eye line of the pilot at one scale.
Perfect.
Yep. So if you make it bigger than the absolutely insane windows, you make it smaller, then so there are some slight problems there. But they were not inclined to fix that with the outside interior mesh. But that's not a problem. But it's a fun detail, and I like you sort of understand the scale, but at the same time, does not make sense. Next view, back with some engines. As you can see, I've given some fun interactive glows, etc.
Now, this differentiates it from the Falcon a little bit because those are different engine styles altogether. They're more, what do you think of a typical like engine design, right? Like a round thrust nozzle, whereas the Falcon's got the long strip of blue. I think it would have been cool to have this be like those two connected as like one piece, like with the glow in the middle instead of the round. But yeah, 4,000 years ago, that was a long time. It's fair to say things have changed, yet not. So I don't know.
Personal preference, right?
Yeah, and it's a red glow, not blue, which is interesting as well.
Kind of a slight purple, yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah. I mean, obviously the ship has that aft curve remaining, so you could do a full back engine, but then it would feel like the Falcon, right? So by going this route, it's different. But also I think there's some, and in the game you can go in the engine room, right? The whole ship is movable, so you can walk around it. I like this because it feels, I understand about the power lines. I feel like I understand where everything is tech-wise, but also it feels we've got redundancy. There are two unique engines with entire different construction and tech. If one breaks, we're fine. There's a Falcon, it's a beautiful unit, but it's like one giant piece, right? So I kind of like the redundancy feel here, and it allows you to have this these bulbous shapes and the cut in the middle, which gives it more depth. With this random connected piece in the middle, that what the hell does it do? Don't know. And in fact, in this view, it looks like it's being hit by the engines. Is how it's, which doesn't does something.
Maybe it slides out and like articulates to like help thrust. I don't know. Sure.
Or maybe it's like the launch units for like NASA. Maybe it throws in some of the chemicals and the thing burns.
Oh, there you go.
It doesn't. That's ridiculous. But maybe it could. I know in a lot of fan versions, obviously you would make more sense. Those go in slightly further, and then the engine nozzles are obviously around it. Yeah, something as simple as, again, back to the colour, of having the orange not be both sides of the engines. Little choices that give it character, Yeah,
it does. It's also, when you're looking at Falcon details, it's lacking the radar dish. Those top guns are interesting. I don't know if can they go forward? I would assume so.
Yeah, whole swivel, whole top, whole bottom. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
And they're big guns too. They're proper.
Yeah, so it's swivels, okay. And yeah, those ones on the side as well, which I assume also rotate. It's actually really, really cool arrangement.
Although you mentioned earlier, I think you meant symmetrical colours, but it is obviously asymmetrical because you can see there's a colour on one side. Because the one on the right is for the ramp, and the colour on the left is empty space, but either side of either pod is the living quarters, so you need a ramp in between. The next view, which understandably is less detailed because, of course, it's the bottom of the ship, but you see the landing legs, which go out organically. Thrust exhaust ports, I think. You got the greeblies on the edge of the curved bit, and then an indent slightly in. I think that's meant to be exhaust of some kind. There are Greeblies in there, but it's weird how kind of literally just like empty hole, but intentional, right? They feel intentional. I wonder what they are.
I don't know, but there's not one to match on the other side, unless I'm
There
missing
isn't.
it.
Oh, there isn't. Huh. No, no.
So I was thinking like thrust
Yeah.
for like landing or takeoff, but I
Maybe
do like the landing gear though, the way they look like skis.
Yeah, really nicely integrated. One of my only critiques about this is, of course, they ran out of time, money, and detail, of course. But if you look on the main head area, the inner detail is, I mean, it's implied detail being plates, but it's kind of flat and nothing. And in the main design, you'll see later, I don't know, is there what could be there? In reality, there's just, the main corridor and then a bit of hull. But why not fill that with something more meaningful? I don't know if it's meant to be. But if you did fill it with like piping, it would be way too over the top, right? So it's one of those things where it looks fine if you just add, as in for the game fans, right? Like if you have something too big there, it'd be too noticeable. But nothing there, it's just an empty space. Any thoughts?
I kind of like that it's not filled with stuff, although you can with Star Wars in general and like Corellian ships in like more specific, you can throw a lot of Greeblies in there and have it look good. I like the way it looks right here, honestly. Yeah, I have no issue with that. I don't think you need to greebly it up or dirty it up any more than it is. And again, it's a scale issue thing as well. Not sure the scale. If it was larger, I could see that being filled with something, but the smaller, I don't know. I think it really affects scale look. So,
but it's also, and I like his Corellian. Potentially, the very deep logic could be that potentially that's a slot they can fit another unit in. And then it actually can make sense to have an interlocking compartment. Why wouldn't you have a version of this where both segments are filled in, right? Negative space is lacking, fill it in with something.
Yeah.
The famous escape pod.
We saw the escape pod that Lando put in, which was awful, by the way. But, I mean, it makes sense between the mandibles. And those mandibles have been always speculated that this was a cargo ship, so that it attaches cargo containers in between there. So you could do the same thing here.
Which would actually add logic to the lack of something. I like it. Next view is the bottom. That's obviously a classic view of it landing. I mean, it's just, for me, that's graceful. Even if it is kind of bulbous shapes or bulky shapes, it's still graceful. Something about the culmination of the parts give it a grace to me. I know I'm biased, but what do you think?
No, it's a great look. And here you see the asymmetrical vibe of it, which makes it feel even more Corellian.
Yeah.
The squared off head part, I got to praise him because that looks really cool. And it's not something a lot of people would do necessarily.
Mm-mm.
It does remind me of something, though. And I don't know if it's the ship from Phantom Menace, the first ship you see that has kind of a squared off head. I don't know if that's what it's invoking in me. But it also feels, with the paint scheme is there, it feels like an office building, or it's got a lot of. I really like the look of this and the color scheme. I think it's actually kind of bird-like in a way, almost like a Romulan vibe, TOS Romulan vibe.
I mean, you're not wrong, right? It invokes quite a lot of unique things. Yeah, this is definitely, it's a very characterful ship, and given that we've had lots of video games where there's Star Wars ships where they have to be the hero ship and the legendary one. A lot of them come and go. For me, this one has always stuck around because it's got such a unique vibe. It's also hugely familiar. But to straddle that line between being it's clearly the Falcon but clearly not the Falcon, and we'll compare later, and it's obviously not at all, but it is, yes, No, it all kind of comes together. And I do definitely see you could work out a way of interlocking a separate component. I mean, in theory, does it have the same pass on either side? I think it does. The inner ring and the outer sort of chunk. Yeah, so in theory you could. So I wonder if there was a version they made originally where it was closed in and they took it out, because it looks really cool, right? It just gives it a flow, a sweep.
I think it looks better like this, honestly, if it than filled in,
because it's such character. No, I like that. It's interesting. And of course, you need the corridor space and the rooms. Like, this thing is fully built room-wise, so all the spaces where things are protruding, that's a room, etc. That was cool.
We got to take into account those landing gear, though. When those go up, they take a bit of internal volume there.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a floor level, right? You can have stuff below the floor level, which explains why they exist, because you need the pontoons to, whatever you said, mandibles to go out, because that's where landing legs go in. Like, actually, that makes super sense. Yeah, obviously. Huh. Form follows function. I like it. Very cool. I do recall that there is a bottom cannon that can go down like the Falcon. Use that a couple of times. I can't. Oh no, yeah, you can see the hatch. It's just in front of the white box, right in the middle. There's a little.
Oh yeah.
So that
I
comes
thought
down.
it looked like I thought maybe it was another landing gear that wasn't down, but yeah.
No, the model was all landed.
So on the left there is the ramp.
Yes, the white unit, which actually I like. You can see the edge of the ramp inset.
Yeah.
And that was always fun being able to see the inside from it and being able to walk up to it, and then when you're in the ship, you'll see the ramp connected and there's loads of Greeblies, and it's pretty iconic. Now this view is obviously if it was landed, but we're below it. This is so nice. Again, heavily biased, but so many things have come together. It's got so much colour, but it's not obnoxious. It's got so much depth and height, but not being too much. I love the grilling inside the landing zone, whatever it means, don't know. I like the guns. It's just a really nice view.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like modern architecture. Like I said, it's got a building vibe to it, especially with those windows and that front part. Frank Lloyd Wright kind of thing going on.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. It obviously it's a spaceship vibe, but it's not exactly adhering to the Star Wars aesthetic, is it? It's doing something different while still being correct. One thing here that you can see that isn't necessarily the best to see, but I was going to mention it earlier. I like that at the front of the orange bits, there's dirt, there's chipped away paint. There's a lovely attention to detail. Obviously, we didn't build in Barry's version because that takes a long time to do. But that lovely bit of character of these things, they hit space and space corrodes over time and adds a bit of character. It's a nice touch of detail.
Well, it looks like those might be like intakes of some kind, so they are like actively sucking things into like power, like Bizarre collectors on Star Trek ships, maybe.
I mean, there's just pipelines, but there's loads of pipelines. You can interpret them in many different ways, right? That's just that's interesting. I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a nice view.
Yeah, it is.
Next view from the bottom. I'd certainly, if you were doing this fresh, the greebling, the piping on the edges, that's definitely an odd detail because that doesn't feel intentional. It does not feel designed to me anyway. It's just covered in greebling. But what is there? What does it need to be? You know what I mean? That for me, that's a slight demerit. But then how do you reinterpret it? Because there's a lot of space to fill with just piping, and if you just do it verbatim, I don't know. What do you think about the side grilling and plating and such?
Again, it ties in with what the Falcon has along the side. It's got
that's more subtle though, or is that just I'm used to it?
Maybe because you're used to it. I mean, the Falcon's the same color as the Falcon, so it's harder to see, I guess. Yeah, I'd probably make a few changes back here, especially with the engine configuration. Those things that go into them, I don't mind that. It's kind of a neat idea. I would just probably make a few tweaks personally, but
yeah, this view is easier to see how they clearly like the middle bit. Probably so I took the model. They had no lit textures because you don't really. Anyway, so I made my own based on that. So I'm using just what is implied to have engines as lit. So potentially that middle bit probably shouldn't be lit, and that should be hull, which it attaches to, and the outer room. I would assume probably because I think it's meant to be all connected like at the tech portion versus all be lit. I think that makes more sense, and it's not hitting itself.
Yeah, I would do the outside rings, leave those center parts filled in, and then I'd actually put a strip of like lighting along the.
I know it's links to shuttles and such, but for some reason I'm vibing this view. There's a lot of empty space right at the back on basically the butt, right? That could be a ramp, how that kind of feels, but that's what the engine room is. It's right above that, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it feels like there should be something there, something more meaningful.
You'd think a door or a ramp or something, because if you got big engineering parts you got to bring in and swap out or whatever, you wouldn't want to drag them through the entire ship necessarily. So if I was working on a ship doing a complete engine overhaul, I'd want easy access to that. So yeah, putting a ramp or doors back there would be a great idea.
Or even some distinct lines so that you can actually it could detach and be dropped, and the entire engine core room could just come away, which is why it's its own unique shape, because it is, right? It's its own. That'd be kind of a cool thing. And then you get on the ground, you open the door to the back, and now you literally walk in on the ground floor to your engine to just disconnect from the ship and do repairs. That would be kind of crazy. But, Stuart, as we always say with these things, and this is impossible in the game pretty much, orthographic, and does it hold up? Does it not? The top and bottom view of the real model from the game. Your thoughts?
Looks like the Commodore 64 logo. It's just the first thing that popped into my head. It's like that weird C shape. But no, I like that. It doesn't feel very large, scale-wise, from this. I mean, if you look at the one on the right, okay. I'm doing the thing that humans do. They turn everything into faces or whatever. The one on the left looks like a Gundam helmet. You got the black visor, and it's got the one on the right looks like, you know, an early video game character's head from the side. Got his mouth open. He's got his eye there. He can never unsee it now.
Oh no, you've ruined it.
That's what I see. That's
great.
That's the way my brain works.
Yeah, the ramp is the eye plate.
Yeah.
Oh no, someone needs to Photoshop that and post on the Trekyards group.
Just add like a little antenna at the top or something for his helmet. Anyway,
yeah, good job.
No, I think it's
happy anniversary, eh?
I think it's an interesting look, and yeah, it still feels Corellian because it's got that, especially the back part, the way that's shaped. So, yeah.
I also, this particularly benefits from, of course, this is not a high definition model, not meant to be a high definition model. The fact that I've orthographically shrunk it on the screen, all the details now don't feel quite as low detail. So I think now you're seeing it rather the macro, the more wide, and I think I love the detailing. Some of the pipes feel more 3D, the little scorch marks. Like I sense so much intentionality to the plating in this view, which other views kind of lost in the fact that, okay, they're a little bit of texture. Like this was clearly crafted. You know, we look at a lot of game ships. Some, as you've pointed out, are mirrored textures. I mean, this might have some of that, but it feels all nice and designed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Now, how do you feel in this view having the middle, being literally a middle strip of piping that cuts almost the ship in half? How's that feel?
It doesn't feel bad by any stretch.
So it feels more obtruse here, but if you go back to the first shot where you can have in 3/4, it's so even though conceptually it's quite in your face, it really kind of isn't. Even though it's literally cutting the ship in half with a giant trench, but it kind of works.
Doesn't take away from it at all for me.
Good. An interesting choice, right? It was a choice and it kind of works.
Yeah.
But the front, the back, and the side, which, again, very classic.
I mean, the side... The front looks really cool. And the back, again, it looks super... Like that's the shape of the Falcon. If you just see a silhouette of that, you might mistake it for the Falcon a little bit, but the guns and stuff kind of take away from that a bit. But you get the Corellian feel from it. The front, not so much. No. The front doesn't feel like it would have that kind of back to it because of the square shapes, and there's so many round things at the back. I don't know. There's something weird going on vibe-wise there. But I do like that front window, but I can see what you mean about right in the... depending on scaling.
So until you scale up the thing, it becomes an obscenely huge, right?
Yeah.
I didn't quite realize how like shoulder blades the orange would look on the front, but it really adds a lot of good color.
Yeah.
And then at the back, you get the engines and the guns saying hello. So it's kind of the reverse. One's a friendly hello, one's a nope. No, this is great. It's so elegantly blocky, but not blocky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really well done piece of design.
And ironically, the side view, the back engine detail, if you're looking at the Millennium Falcon from the front, it's got those it's got the same kind of shape at the side, each side of the ship.
Oh yeah,
but it's the side, not the back.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's making your brain recognize shapes that say, yeah, it's Corellian. I mean, it's pretty good design when you think about it that way.
Yeah. Well, I'm intrigued that everything's perspective, right? But the side view almost looks like the ship's flat, and at the front it has so much depth. It's interesting that the way the engines angle up and meet it, and the way they don't. That's an interesting optical illusion there. And I do quite like that the two, pincers, as you say, whatever, have these giant plates, which kind of almost speak to their replaceability, because they're right in the, getting hit by debris or whatever. Those ships are obviously small plates, but those are these big, giant, welded plates. It's more visible on the side when it kind of segments. It's nice. Mm-hmm. I like it. But, Stuart, are you ready for some comparison? So, the next view is a sort of more of a design scale comparison versus a scale comparison. And this is one of the licensed Falcon models, and again, both lit in the engine. So if you go back and watch our original video, these ships look much worse because I couldn't render as well. So this is now a nicer render to show the details even nicer. So now, how do you feel? And we'll talk about scale in a minute. How do you feel? Because boy, they ain't at all similar, but they feel similar. What a trick, What do you think?
Well, I mean, scale-wise, I see the cockpits kind of being the same size here. I think that's maybe what we're going for.
I just filled up the frame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because honestly, you look at the size of the cockpits, you can imagine, okay, the cockpit's the same size, sure. The guns seem ridiculously oversized on the Ebon Hawk, though, compared to the Falcon on this one. But again, if it's much older tech, it could also mean that things have to be bigger. Because the more advanced tech gets, the smaller it gets.
Well, also, there's definitely a precedent in this, in that the Falcon, those top and bottom cannons, are only fighter-based weapons. They can't take on capital ships, they're just to take on fighters, whereas these big cannons are more medium grade, like this can shoot big... Huh? Yeah. Like the top one is more for the fighters, which is still bigger, but no, the side one's like, it can do... They're not the same guns, suffice to say. They're high-powered guns.
Well, here you get that trench you talked about a minute ago. You get the same visual detail on the Falcon with those side pods. It's visually the same.
Entirely different.
Yeah, even the turret, the way the gun turret turns, that whole middle section of the Falcon turns, yeah, wow.
And obviously the pincers are reflected in both, but entirely different, and yet you can see where they took A to B. And I had forgotten there was a middle square in the Falcon, which... Maybe they played around with moving things in pre-Photoshop, whatever, and I can see the shape is there. It's kind of remarkable, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities,
and yet it's different. The color, the detail, and the texturing. I mean, yeah, the Falcon is all about big plates, small Greeblies. The Ebon Hawk is about small plates and pipe Greeblies. There's very little extra, which actually, it speaks to it being a far more. So obviously the Falcon was not kit bash, but it was a put together with parts and pieces, and it's configuration standard, right? This is based on an era where the universe is kind of okay, and there are lots of societies building ships. The Falcon's far more, the Empire's crushing people and blah, 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 right? Or at least that's how it currently looks. So it's a different sort of structure. But I'm very glad they didn't go with I love the side cockpit of the Falcon. I'm so glad with the central and the pods. It's just such a nice vibe.
The Falcon also has a lot more exposed kind of Greebly sections, and I don't know if that's just because, if you take plates off the Ebon Hawk, would you see the same thing under there?
Well, you say that, but given it's more like there's random smaller plates visible or exposed in the Falcon, but the Ebon Hawk has these giant exposed, but it's more intentional, right? The Falcon feels more like, we have to open this bit to do maintenance. The other one is, we just need these zones all open, right?
Mm-hmm. I do wish the Ebon Hawk, though, on the engine details that kind of go from the center to out to the engines, I wish there was one or two, perhaps on each side, little circle grates, just to kind of tie in the engine details a little bit.
Or even just implied half circles in the paint, right? Because that'd be kind of fun to have. Imagine putting, so say they're just plated on. Imagine if you had the reverse, so it's red and white, orange and white. What if it was white and orange, the reverse colours to little circles? Kind of a fun reverse colour thing. Now, okay, so this is just me showing design difference. This next shot is the official size. Now, I think we all have problems with the official size, but I'll tell you, give me your first thoughts and I'll give you the numbers and see what you think.
Well, this feels a lot better to me. Even the cockpit, which I talked about with the last few. I'm not sure how big the cockpit is in like I haven't played the game, but yeah, I can see 2 seats facing forward, maybe one on each like side behind. With the scale, also the guns feel more in line with each other. This scale makes more sense to me, and is what my brain would originally say that it should be. Kind of a little bit smaller than the Falcon, but
Neat. It's like a little cousin, right? So now these are the official lengths, but as we know, just from the Falcon, they had the miniature, they had the physical set, 3/4 built, whatever. The interior is different as well, and that changed out the movies, right? So the official size is kind of variable and it doesn't properly fit without some tweaks. But the official length is 35 meters. Okay. The Ebon Hawk's official is 24 meters, so 9 meters less. That's irrespective of anything else being equal. That's just the official length. That's what I've gone with here. In the last video, of course, we did the comparison with people, and that doesn't work, as we've shown, because the side pods, people need to be lying down, and there's bedding, but of course, as with Star Trek Online, you need room for the camera. So there is person's room, walking room, and camera room because it's quite high. So the Ebon Hawk cockpit has 2 seats, as you say, a decent space in between, and decent space between the edges. So it's actually twice, a thing and a third bigger, twice than hull, right? So it should be bigger than this to fit certain things in, but if you do that, then everything gets giant. So this is the conceptual size, but practically doesn't quite make sense. But then neither does the Falcon's size, right? But this is the official, so I wanted to show at least what's potentially intended to be, and yeah, it fits wonderfully at the size, right? It's a beautifully neat.
yeah, I mean, and the Falcon's got the same kind of issues with interior space and external like shapes, dimensions. It just doesn't quite work.
Next view, though, now this again puts into perspective because one scale does not equate the other. The cockpit and the Falcon, they're sitting and they're looking. In the Ebon Hawk, they're sort of equally looking in the middle of the glass with a bit, but then the headroom is now insane, right? Where's the reason for that? I don't know. But also, you also need to have like the floor, because if you put people's heads with a view out the window, there's almost no hull underneath. But you do need hull underneath and armor, so it doesn't really work. But how does that feel?
Feels good, honestly. Again, even the guns kind of match up scale-wise, which I appreciate.
But how cohesive does it feel? Because now we're looking at it with the Greeblies and such. How cohesive design does it feel?
I think it works. Yeah.
I think what gets me about the side Greeblies is that in the Falcon they're hidden by plating, so it's there when you turn, but they're subtle. Whereas the Hawks, it's out there in the open. It's very like, here, look.
It's making me appreciate how cool the Falcon is, though.
Yeah, it was fun to put in the render engine and like make the engines glow and see the fall off, and
yeah.
I mean, it's a busy ship, but also it's plain. It's one color, give or take. They do so different things, but so many of the same things. It's good design. But, of course, 3/4. Once, and there's one more picture at the end as well. But now, how do you feel? 7 years on, do you like it more? Less? Where would you put in the pantheon of your Star Wars-ness?
I do like it. I do like the design. I like Star Wars ships in general. And like I said, this feels Corellian, just kind of at first glance. Maybe not at first glance. Maybe it's like after a couple seconds of looking at it, you're kind of oh, okay, wait a minute, there it is. But I like that, though. And considering it's a much older design, probably, than the Falcon.
Your grand 4,000 pappies Corellian, yeah.
This is the Model A of Corellian ships, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it works. And I love the color scheme as well. I always like when people paint up their Corellian freighters with the colors, different color schemes. I like that. Like, it's personalized. But the colors work really well, so.
Do you see, because like I said, I'm hugely biased, do you see why fans could resonate with this one for how like characterful it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you're on it all the time, or you're flying it, or you're in the different your rooms and quarters. Yeah, I can understand exactly. It's not too big. It's not like it's more personal because it's a smaller, more relatable size, right? So,
and it's fun to be able to look out the cockpit and see the two pincers, and then and vice versa inside. But I want to end, because it's all been my renders of the show model. Here is the official Memory Alpha picture, just to kind of give you one more last bit of context as to how it looks in their presentation with their engine. How does that feel as different? Because it's an official image.
The only thing I notice that's different is the engine color.
And the fact there's a black dot in the middle, which I probably should have done that on mine. But that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's more post-processed than my version.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, it looks nice. I mean, it's like I say, it feels very intentional. Hopefully a nice high-res version built and we can see it fly again, because it's just nice. So there you go, Stuart. That was my 10-year anniversary pick to rediscover this beauty and do, like I said, fresh renders. Last time, these are much nicer than they were then. And you guys that like the Ebon Hawk, these renders have not been done before with the Falcon. This is stuff that you can take to the bank, as it were. But I do think, though, it's worth at some point, as if I haven't already started prepping it, comparing the Ebon Hawk in the grander Styles universe. So how it compares to other era ships, both its official scale, maybe more correct scale, whatever. Because contrast is always key with these things. So how does it compare to an X-wing, an A-wing, whatever? I'd be interested. So let us know if you want to see that, and see a classic ship with other classic ships.
So comment that down below, guys. That's what the comment section is for. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click notification bell icon so you don't miss when we upload edited content like this or lives where you guys can hang out with us. So we want to see you guys. We've got a great community after 10 years and we want to add to it still. So please hit that subscribe button if you're not already.
And if you want to support this 10-year anniversary set of specials, then super chat on our live, or in this video particularly, super thanks. And anything as a little happy anniversary bit of love would be appreciated. Or join us on Patreon. It's a monthly donation service, helps us do what we do. Or join the channel on YouTube, both monthly, both go a long way. Or, like I said, super chat on live, or PayPal, trekyards@hotmail.com, or just be here for the next one. And go back and watch the Ebon Hawk and say we sent you, because I guess we have as well.
Yes. Anyway, until next time, he is Commander Cockings.
He's got a Foley.
Bye, guys.